Hey YouTube, I am 808 Big Shorty. I am an armed American patriot, and this is my call to arms. Please forgive me if this message seems like it's being read to you. It's just that I have a lot of important information that I wanted to share with you, and in order to get the message across to you in the most beneficial way, I felt that it was better for me to read this message to you. In recent days, we have seen some horrifically tragic events played out by folks that were mentally unstable, that used firearms as a tool to carry out their evil, despicable acts. There were many lives lost this year due to the evil acts of a few individuals. It is upsetting to me that as soon as these tragic events occurred, politicians started politicizing these events to push their agendas calling for more gun control. It is alarming that these elected officials that swore to uphold the Constitution would be so quick to infringe upon the rights of law-abiding citizens instead of addressing the real problems we face. In America, we have a drug epidemic that has affected the lives of the families of drug abuse victims. Many of these drug abuse victims, due to their indiscretions, have produced drug and alcohol babies that started life off with some tremendous obstacles to face. Years ago, I worked for a behavioral health organization that monitored the mental health of these children and helped to steer these kids to make better choices and help them to cope with their psychological issues due to chemical imbalances as a result of their parents' indiscretions. Over the years, I have watched these children grow into adults, and sadly, a lot of these kids never outgrew their obstacles they were born with, and as adults were put into the world and fell through the cracks of the system. And these children with mental health issues grew into adults with mental health issues. Currently, I work in a correctional institution, and I have seen some of these children I worked with years ago go in and out of jail. Sadly, these kids are not alone. It is said that over 90% of the prison population in America suffers from some form of mental illness. With more states shutting down mental health hospitals, we are seeing an overwhelming number of inmates with mental health issues incarcerated. If the prison system is a microcosm of what is happening in the world outside, this should be a cause for great alarm. As I go about my business in my daily routine, I am cautiously observant of what goes on around me. I am constantly looking out for people that I observe that show signs of mental instability and how they cope with what is going on around them. These people come from all aspects of society and come in all shapes and sizes. They are everywhere. If these people don't get the help and support they need from the people that should care, where will they turn to, and how will that affect their lives? I see too many of these people with mental illnesses being preyed upon and exploited by those that show them a bit of attention and are easily influenced by these predators. I have seen some of these folks do some pretty stupid things because of the influences of others. Lately, I have been hearing a lot of people saying that people are not influenced by what they are watching on TV or the video games they play or the music they listen to. Let me tell you, there are people in our midst that are easily influenced and are weak-minded. Some of these folks will commit themselves to doing some evil things. It happens every day. If the states are not protecting these people and are not looking out for their best interests, who will protect us from them? I'm not saying that all people with mental illnesses are going to commit horrible crimes, but who will protect you from those that do? Another aspect or facet of this problem is the moral decay of society and the loss of traditional values. I was fortunate to have been raised in a relatively safe, good home to good, hardworking parents that taught me to appreciate our family's traditional values and morals, and through my religious and secular upbringing, everything supported and enhanced each facet of my life. I'm not saying my life growing up was perfect, but I was raised in an environment that instilled a great appreciation of love, honor, and respect for others, and a great understanding of the traditions of our people. There are those in society that were not as fortunate and have a narcissistic view of life and have no morals or conscience of actions they commit to. These are the predators that feed on the weak, and often are the ones that will make a living off of a life of crime. These predators are out there in our community, and if you pay close enough attention to what is going on around you, they are easy to see. The criminal justice system is filled with these types of predators, and there are more and more of them showing up every year. The criminal justice system is weak on crime and weak on the criminals that are being incarcerated. We have men and women in the law enforcement community that are out there doing their best to keep our community safe from these predators. But sadly, they are spread out too thin to protect everyone in all areas of their communities 100% of the time. I will be returning to this topic in a minute, but the point I am making at this point here is that people in the law enforcement community are doing all that they can do, and they have been busy. Across the nation, our prisons are being overcrowded, and to help with alleviating the dangerously high overcrowding situation, criminals are being let out early on parole, probation, early release work, and educational programs. Most of these criminals that are out on early release programs end up coming back to prison. At some point, you have to ask yourself, if being incarcerated in prison is so bad, why do criminals keep coming back? An answer to this, I believe, is that they have nothing to fear in prison. There you have a relatively safe living environment with 3 hot meals a day, with arts and crafts and free entertainment and education, and for the really ambitious few, there is a legal library that can be accessed to help these criminals. It's a safe haven for them to plan for their next scheme. If they are not happy with their current living conditions, the jailhouse lawyers or inmates that are skilled at using the criminal justice system against itself will file grievances and lawsuits to get things the way they want. It's safe to say that there are many repeat offenders in prison that eventually make their way out and have no fear of going back. With that said, there are a lot of people out in the real world that are former convicted felons that are out committing crimes with no fear of going back. A little earlier, I talked about our law enforcement community. As good as these folks are, they can't be everywhere all at once, and in a lot of cases, it could take several minutes for them to respond to your location. If you ever needed their help, and you were in a desperate situation where your life or the lives of your loved ones were in imminent danger, what would you do? You could sit there and barricade yourself in and pray and wait, or you could take the proactive approach and protect yourself. What if these criminals were hell-bent on taking your life? Could you honestly say that you would bet your life on law enforcement personnel to reach you in time, to protect you from those that would do you harm? There are politicians that believe that you do not deserve the right to protect yourself or the lives of your loved ones, and that you should rely only on law enforcement to protect you. Some of these politicians own their own firearms and have the privilege of having 24-hour armed security to protect them. so that they can tell you that you don't need a gun. Because of their rhetoric and lies and their distrust of the average law-abiding citizen, they want to change the course of history and would infringe upon your rights as an American to be able to bear arms. It's time for you to make your voices heard. Contact your elected congressmen and legislators and urge them to not to support any gun control legislation. It is vital to preserve our American way of life that you contact your elected politicians and let them know how you feel about your right to keep and bear arms. Our country's founding forefathers, more than anything else, feared a tyrannical government. In order to prevent a government like that of the British from ever being able to take power again, they gave every citizen that would pledge allegiance to this country the power to rise up against an unjust government, both in word and in deed. They presented us with the Bill of Rights that guaranteed you certain inalienable rights. The first is the freedom of speech, to be able to speak out against the government, and the second is your right to arm yourself, to be able to protect your rights, to be free to speak your mind. What would happen if you were to give up this right? Are you willing to suffer the consequences of doing so? The blood of many of our country's sons was spilled on American soil to protect this right. Don't let their sacrifices die in vain. Stand up and let your voices be heard. Tell your elected officials to protect your right to keep and bear arms. If you haven't already done so, join the National Rifle Association or any of the other gun rights organizations that will help to protect your rights to keep and bear arms. With the recent threats to our Second Amendment rights by gun-grabbing liberal politicians and the liberal media, it has sparked a buying frenzy all across the nation. There has been a lot of talk about semi-automatic assault weapons bans in the past, but now, in light of the recent tragic shootings, gun-grabbing politicians are on a warpath, calling for more restrictions, which in effect is punishing law-abiding citizens. There has also been rumors of impending firearms confiscation. With that in mind, I would like to address members of the law enforcement community. If it came down to it, would you be willing to go out and execute an unconstitutional and unlawful order by taking firearms from law-abiding citizens? Would you be willing to face the repercussions of executing this order? I'm a peaceful law-abiding citizen, and I am not advocating any violence. And I am not willing to just hand you my firearms. And I will not go down without a fight. With that said, I am drawing the line in the sand. The Spartan king Leonidas, in response to the Persian Xerxes' request for the Spartans to surrender, said, "Molan lab," which translates to, "Come and take it." As the Spartans closed ranks and raised their shields and their spears, blocking the hot gates in the Battle of Thermopylae, the Spartans were outnumbered, but they never gave up their arms. Across the nation, gun owners have been gearing up and stockpiling guns and ammo ever since President Obama won re-election. He threatened to institute an assault weapons ban, and he is using the recent shootings and the media to push his agenda. He is waging war on law-abiding gun owners' rights. And to that I say, Mr. President, come and take it from my cold dead hands. I am 808 Big Shorty, and this is my call to arms. In the description box below, you will find links to contact your elected officials and links to Second Amendment rights organizations. Contact your congressional delegates and legislators in Washington and urge them not to support any gun control legislation. I'm 808 Big Shorty, and I thank you for watching this message.